definition of paranormal is those things that science cannot explain yet. However, most of our present-day scientific achievements were once dismissed. Years ago, it was inconceivable to think that you could use a device to talk to a friend on the other side of the world. In fact, in 1868, the newspapers ran editorials claiming that telephones were pure trickery. At present, energy healing, psychokinesis and UFOs are some of the subjects that scientists cannot explain, but perhaps one day will. Tonight, we're going to travel to Ireland and witness the incurable get healed. Also, we have amazing photos of ghosts that experts say are genuine, and an astonishing display of mind over matter by Chinese monks. First, though, if a fleet of UFOs were to fly over London or New York in broad daylight, be seen by thousands of people, and be recorded by dozens of video cameras, you'd think there'd be widespread panic. Well, that's exactly what's been happening in the skies above Mexico City, the world's largest metropolis. But rather than causing terror, the sightings have become almost a national celebration for the Mexicans. We went to find out about the biggest wave of sightings in UFO history. According to some historians, more than 1,000 years ago, Mayan astronomers predicted that the 20th century would see a total eclipse of the sun that would be followed by visits from the Masters of the Stars. These extraterrestrial travelers would herald a new age of cosmic awareness. Shortly after midday, on July 11th, 1991, the sun was eclipsed by the moon for nearly 7 minutes, and many believe this was the eclipse the Mayans were referring to. Thousands of Mexicans were out in the streets with binoculars, telescopes and video cameras aimed towards the heavens. But what they captured on video wasn't just the expected astronomical event. Many people videotaped what looked like a bright metallic disc hovering above the Anahuac Valley of Mexico City, and thousands more witnessed it. Even more startling was that when the objects in the different videos were compared, they looked identical. Whatever it was, everyone had seen the same thing, and no one could explain it. But the sightings were not limited to Mexico City. In villages more than 100 miles away, people also witnessed and filmed what looked like a metallic object hovering above them. The Breton family in the village of Puebla were making a home video of the eclipse when they captured a UFO on tape. And in other small villages, such as Oaxaca and Tepe del Rio, the unidentified object was seen again. When compared with the footage taken in Mexico City at the same time, all the objects appear to be identical. But did that mean that there was more than one UFO above Mexico City on that day, or had the same object traveled a large distance in almost no time at all? Well, this astounding footage of a so-called hyper jump shows how something could have traveled a huge distance in a fraction of a second. Shot on the day of the eclipse, it's caught in only 4 frames, an object leaping from one side of the sky to the other. And what's particularly remarkable about this footage is that when it's put into slow motion, the object appears to project some kind of beam and then rides it to its destination. But this was only the beginning. Since the eclipse, UFO fever has gripped the Mexican people, and sightings of strange objects in the sky have become almost a daily occurrence.
We were
on the roof terrace of my house when suddenly 2 white objects in the sky caught my eye. They were heading towards the volcano that's nearby. I watched them carefully when suddenly a 3rd object, a black object, passed right in front of them. The city lights were reflected in it as if it were a mirror. I've seen these objects from many places in Mexico City. They fly over different areas of the city. I've seen them at the airport, I've seen them at truck stops, and I've seen them from the top of different public buildings like the hospital. I've seen them during the day, in the afternoon, at night, and at dawn.
Jaime Mason is one of Mexico's most respected investigative journalists. He also saw the unidentified object during the eclipse and has asked the Mexican people to help him investigate the repeated sightings of UFOs over their country.
The reason why this wave of UFOs is so important in Mexico
is that the Mexican people has been able to create evidences through video to show that this is really happening. We have a proof right here in Mexico that the extraterrestrial intelligence is present in our world at this time.
Jaime made various appeals on national television for people to send him videos of UFO sightings, and the amount of material that's been forthcoming is staggering.
The reaction of the Mexican people to this phenomenon at the beginning was skepticism, but now everyone is interested. There are TV shows, radio shows, there is a fever in Mexico, everybody wants to know.
Since then, official groups of UFO spotters have been set up. One is the Vigilantes, who hold round-the-clock vigils of the skies above Mexico City.
The Vigilantes are a group of people from all over the country who are volunteers, and we are looking for UFOs in the sky above Mexico City practically all day long. Usually we get telephone calls or reports which people send us, and that enables us to start our investigations.
The Vigilantes then go to the place of the sightings to see if there's a logical explanation. If there isn't, they contact Mexico City's air traffic control to find out whether their radars also detected an unidentified object at the same place.
We look at the radar screen to identify the echo and see whether there's an object there or not. Last year we had various reports, and the positions of our radar echoes have corresponded with the sightings that people have had down on the ground. The strange thing is, they aren't any kind of aircraft that's known to us. They aren't craft that have been regulated by air traffic control, and they have very strange flying patterns.
There have also been terrifying tales of near-air collisions between commercial aircraft and UFOs during their descent to the runway. On the 8th of August 1994, Captain Carlos Corzo was making his final approach into Mexico City on a routine commercial flight from Acapulco, when suddenly a UFO crossed his flight path.
We came out from a cloud. This was this big metallic, shiny object as a platinum. It was flying in front of us just like if we were crushed with it. So I called the air traffic control, and they answered that no airplanes were on that area and that we were the 5th station on the last 4 days that gave a report like this.
But not all pilots have had such a lucky escape. Captain Ramando Ruano landed after claiming that he'd collided with a UFO during his final descent. When Captain Ruano landed, it was discovered that part of the undercarriage had been sheared in half. The number of sightings above Mexico City shows no signs of abating. If anything, it seems the UFOs want to be seen. They can now almost be relied upon to appear on occasions when people will be looking up at the skies, such as this 1993 aerial display to celebrate Mexico's Independence Day. Thousands of Mexicans are adamant that the country's being visited by the masters of the stars, as the Mayans prophesied. And Jaime Maussan in particular is determined to convince the rest of the world to take it seriously.
Do you think that the whole city would stop because nothing was happening up there? I mean, we are a very smart country. We have problems, but we know what a UFO is. You cannot lie to the people. You cannot create these images if they don't exist.
The next time you get your photos back from the chemist, check for unexpected developments. There are two people here this evening who found more relatives in their family photos than they were expecting. Rosemary Seligman, you have a very interesting story to tell. Can you explain to us what's unusual about this photograph?
Well, this photograph was taken in a private woodland that belonged to my sister-in-law, and she, at the time, was dying of cancer. And I got my son and a friend to stand on the little bridge When this photo was printed, there was an extra figure in this photograph, and it is very certainly that of my mother-in-law.
So you recognise this woman as being your late mother-in-law by the way she's dressed and the posture?
And her posture, yes.
Yes. With us this evening is Maurice Gross. He's one of England's leading psychic investigators. Maurice, what is it that you think makes this photo genuine? What specifically?
Well, we've examined it very carefully. The surface of the actual negative has not been interfered with at all, and of course it was machine developed. So there's no question of there being any fraud attached to it. Interestingly enough, you'll see that part of the figure is that side of the girl. It's that side of the bar that comes through here, but the foot here is actually in front here. So it's almost as if she's 3/4 of the way walking through the girl here. And I'm in my own mind, from the actual investigation of the negative, it's quite genuine.
Thank you very much, Rosemary. Let's take a look at this one. This is another very interesting photo. George Todd, you were celebrating an anniversary in Austria when you took these two photos. Can you tell us about those?
It was the last night of our holiday. The tour company had arranged a Tyrolean evening. Towards the end of the evening, my wife suggested I took a group photograph. And I thought, well, if I use the 10-second delay timer, I can appear on the photograph myself. So I set the camera up on an adjacent table, sat with a smile on my face. The flash didn't work. Checked everything was in order, pressed the button again, returned to my seat, and we have a perfect picture second time round.
So this picture here was taken with a flash, this one wasn't. And in the one that wasn't, this is what's unusual. Now, who is this person, George?
I have no idea.
What do you make of it, Maurice?
Well, I think that this is one of the greatest pictures of an actual apparition I've ever seen, and probably ever likely to see. You see here, the woman is actually can be seen behind the beer glasses here. You can see her, even the distortion in the beer glasses. She's quite solid. She's about 15% too large. She's also slightly out of focus. Now, she shouldn't be out of focus because everybody else is in focus. She's out of focus. Well, that's literally impossible. It can't be a double exposure. You can't get a double exposure inside a photograph. She's actually inside that. How did she get there?
So your conclusion, then, about this photograph is what?
It's genuine, and it is an apparition. How she got there, I don't know, but she obviously switched the flash off so that she could be seen.
Thank you very much, George. Thank you, Maurice. Thank you, Rosemary. Hidden away in one of the remotest parts of China, a group of Buddhist monks have, for the last 1,600 years, been perfecting their kung fu skills to superhuman levels. The Shaolin monks have been exploring the potential of mind over matter, but it's only recently that they've allowed anyone into their temple to see their amazing powers. The Shaolin monks in China's Hunan province have dedicated their lives to total mental and physical self-discipline in their search for perfection. They believe that superhuman achievements are possible by learning to summon up huge amounts of physical energy so that they become more agile than any animal and stronger than iron or stone. They call it Ki energy. It's the ultimate quest in mind over matter. He commands his body to withstand any onslaught. It's not a trick. The spears are very sharp. The man underneath is sandwiched between two beds of nails. It's a cast iron bar. He knows that whatever happens next, his focused Ki energy must protect his throat. There's there's not a mark on him. He couldn't walk, he couldn't work, he was stuck in a wheelchair. The amazing story of how a paralysed man was healed and able to walk in just a moment. 200 years ago, the best medical minds at the time believed it was a good practice to drain people's blood to get them better. In the 19th century, one of the founders of modern medicine, Louis Pasteur, was accused of being in league with the devil. Today, there are increasing numbers of natural healers, but many doctors remain sceptical. Let's meet one of Ireland's best-known healers, Michael O'Doherty. How are you, Paul? I'm fine. Great to see you, Michael. Thank you for coming. Many healers say that we're surrounded by an invisible energy. Is that true?
Yes, Paul, that's true. Each one of us is made up of energy. This energy vibrates through our body and it emanates from the center of the body through channels outside the body, basically creating an electromagnetic field, or what's called an aura.
Now, when you're healing somebody, are they aware of that? Do they get some sensation?
Some people will feel a sensation like a heat, tingling, coolness, or a magnetic pull.
Could you demonstrate that on me?
Yes. Basically, the energy field surrounds your body, obviously. So we use these series of movements to begin to X-ray this energy field and begin to feel where there are blockages or imbalances in the energy system. And then, of course, we begin to use various movements to begin to balance the field out.
Oh, hang on. I can feel something unusual there. Felt like I was being pulled back, yeah. Now, I could resist that, but I could just feel a gentle
pull.
Yeah.
And basically what's actually happening, there's an interaction of energy taking place, and my hands just act like a magnet. We're realigning the electromagnetic field, we're also reaffirming the natural flow of energy through the body, and once we do this, we're creating the internal environment to allow the body to heal, and that's ultimately the purpose of it.
Fascinating. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Paul.
Now I suspect we are going to upset a few conventional medical minds as we go to County Clare in Ireland, where Michael and his colleagues have built huge reputations with an approach to treating disease that simply baffles modern medicine. Anne Mockler went to Michael O'Doherty with polymyalgia rheumatica, a very painful disease which affects the muscles, often leaving the patient permanently bedridden.
The first thing I found was the circulation moving up and down on my face. And after about 3 months treatment, one night I came home and all the pains left like that. No more pains, no more aches. I was able to walk.
Hugh Rice had to give up work after a motorbike accident seriously damaged his lower spine and paralysed his left leg. Doctors told him he'd never walk again.
People say it's a miracle cure. At the end of the day, it boils down to two things, like it boils down to a lot of prayer and it boils down to bioenergy.
Jerry Keane's life changed dramatically following a car accident, which totally paralysed his right leg and badly damaged his lower back. He was in constant pain and could only walk with the aid of crutches.
I had 3 or 4 sessions with them and I found a great improvement. Crutches, everything gone, and eventually started to walk.
We have found that basically every illness has responded to this therapy, from people with asthma, depression, digestive disorders, various illnesses, people after strokes, serious accidents, and indeed even some of the very terminal illnesses, people have benefited from this therapy.
To treat their patients, the healers claim to manipulate the invisible electromagnetic field which they believe surrounds the body with a series of specially developed hand movements. They say that a strong field makes for a healthy body, but any gaps, holes, or interference indicates a problem or illness. They detect those weak spots through their psychic ability or extrasensory perception.
We've wanted just to scan our hand near a person. We can feel all the electrical impulses. And where we find a blockage, I usually feel like a very strong tingling sensation. Sometimes like a very strong heat sensation or very cold.
When we feel that sensation, we then go into another series of movements to be able to restore the flow of life force energy to that area. And this life force energy is what carries the activation current into all of the cells. Without it, the cells tend to wind down and they'll often go into some kind of a disease process or maybe some kind of physical or emotional abnormality. But once the energy flow is restored in an area, then the life process will generally take care of itself.
Demand for the treatment, which takes between 3 weeks and 3 months and costs up to £50 a session, is now so high in Ireland that the healers often hire large venues for open clinics with up to 15 healers working at a time. Eddie Duggan is currently receiving regular treatment.
My son Eddie had an accident. He was hit from behind by a car that mounted a footpath, and he was very badly brain damaged. He was so badly brain damaged that the doctors said they didn't know what they'd save for us if they could save him.
When I'm being treated, I feel a sensation like pins and needles in my leg or shoulder. It's very hard to describe the sensation, but pins and needles would come closest to it.
Since we've taken him to bioenergy, he has improved immensely. He has full use of his left arm, which he did not have. He is standing and he is walking. He walks all the time as a walking frame.
Our hands are like magnets, and the energy field is a magnetic field. So once we link with that energy field, people often feel being pulled back.
It's just like as if there was little ropes or something like that tied onto me. Like I just go back and I can't understand why.
The work at the Plexus Institute isn't a miracle cure by any means. It's simply catalytic in unfolding people's innate capabilities. Every person has within their body the ability to recover from serious illness, and all we do is unlock that capability.
A remarkable story. Well, that's all we have time for. Please join me again next week for another amazing journey into the world of the paranormal. Good night.